When you're ready to unwind, let your mind drift into a quieter place as we gently explore how the world once felt under endless cold. A story told softly enough to help you feel calm, drowsy, and comforted, like resting beside a gentle crackling fire. In a few moments, we'll step into a frozen world long before the Ice Age ended. Slow, quiet, and full of peaceful stillness. Before we wander deeper into this story, may I ask, from which country are you listening tonight, and what time is it where you are? Before we continue, if you enjoy calm historical journeys like this one, you're welcome to gently tap like, subscribe, and share a small comment. It truly supports this peaceful corner of the internet. Now, take a slow breath as we begin. Imagine a world wrapped in cold from horizon to horizon, with vast sheets of ice resting across the land. This wasn't a world of rush or noise. It moved at a patient pace, as if the earth itself were exhaling slowly under the weight of winter. Let your shoulders relax as you picture that quiet landscape. Long before warmth returned, the air itself had a different character, sharp, dry, and filled with a kind of silence that made every sound softer. Footsteps on snow felt hushed, and the wind carried a steady whisper across frozen plains. As you settle into this moment, let the rhythm of your breathing slow to match the gentleness of that ancient world. Ice dominated everything. Mountains wore thick white layers, and entire valleys were sealed under frozen blankets that stretched farther than any traveler could see. The world was shaped not by quick changes, but by the slow, steady movement of glacier, a movement so gradual that only the most patient observer would notice. Let this sense of slowness comfort your thoughts. Even during the coldest ages, the earth was never completely still. Beneath those enormous layers of ice, rivers continued to flow, guided by the will of the one who controls all things. Water carved secret paths under frozen ceilings, creating hidden channels that carried life quietly from one place to another. Picture these unseen currents moving peacefully, without hurry. Every now and then, allow yourself to rest your attention gently. You're listening to a calm story, and your only task is simply to be here, letting your mind drift softly. The sun in this era seemed distant. Its light was pale and muted, as though it had to travel farther to reach the ground. Days were shorter, shadows were longer, and even at midday the warmth felt faint. People living through this time adapted their routines to the limited daylight, moving slowly and thoughtfully as they worked against the persistent cold. Snow covered nearly every surface. Not the thin, temporary snowfall we know today, but deep, layered snow that stayed for months, sometimes years. The ground lay hidden beneath it, and the world took on soft contours, smooth hills, rounded mounds, and gentle slopes created from countless storms settling into one unbroken sheet. Imagine the comfort of that visual simplicity. Across the frozen plains, the wind shaped everything. It sculpted the snow into ridges and waves, leaving patterns that stretched across the land like careful brushstrokes. Travelers of the time understood the wind intimately, reading its movements the way one might read the lines of an old map. Let this idea bring an easy stillness to your thoughts. As you continue listening, let this be a gentle reminder to release any tension you may still be holding. These stories move slowly on purpose, inviting you to settle deeper into rest. In this world of cold, colors were soft and muted. Whites and grays blended with pale blues, while the rare patches of exposed rock added touches of deep brown. The sky often appeared hazy, diffusing the light until everything felt dreamlike. This softened landscape made every movement, every step, every breath, feel deliberate, as if time itself were wrapped in a slower rhythm. People of the Ice Age lived in small communities, relying on one another for warmth and safety. They understood the land more intimately than we can imagine, studying patterns of snow, light, and wind to decide where to travel and where to rest. Their knowledge was shaped by experience, patience, and careful observation, skills that grew with every passing season. Think of how quiet nights must have been. Without machines or bright lights, the world rested in near total stillness. The soft glow from a small fire offered gentle comfort, warming hands and faces, while beyond the shelter's entrance, the night stretched across an endless white landscape. In that silence, Every heartbeat and breath felt meaningful. The cold influenced not just the land, but the minds of the people who lived in it. They developed habits of caution, endurance, and gratitude for every small comfort provided by the one who sustains all creation. Each morning brought a new challenge, yet also a new chance to witness the beauty and resilience of their surroundings. As you listen, let your thoughts sink into this calm atmosphere. There is nothing to rush, nothing to solve, nothing to carry into tomorrow. Just a quiet world, slowly unfolding. And so the frozen earth continued its long, slow cycle. Ice expanded, retreated, advanced again, and shaped the continents with patient strength. Before the Ice Age ended, this frozen rhythm defined life itself, guiding the movements of animals, people, and the very shape of the land. The deeper we step into this ancient world, the more we begin to feel how powerful the cold truly was. It shaped not only the land, but the pace of life itself. Every decision, when to move, where to rest, what path to choose, was made with an awareness of the environment. Nothing was rushed. Everything was approached with patience, caution, and steady focus. Let that same sense of steadiness settle gently into your breathing now. The sky above these frozen regions often appeared low and heavy, filled with drifting clouds that muted the light. When snow fell, it did so quietly, creating a soft, almost meditative soundscape. There were no engines, no buzzing machines, just wind, ice, and the muffled crunch of footsteps. Imagine standing in that silence, where even your own breathing seems to blend with the landscape. At times, the wind carried tiny crystals of ice that sparkled in the dim light, giving the air a shimmering appearance. Travelers would shield their faces, not out of panic, but out of calm understanding. Another small reminder that nature was always present, always in motion. As you picture this, let your thoughts drift like those tiny crystals, slow and unhurried. As communities moved across the land, they learned to recognize the safest routes, paths where ice was solid, slopes were gentle, and the wind was manageable. These routes were not chosen randomly. They were passed down from earlier generations, shared quietly around evening gatherings as people planned their next steps. The wisdom they carried was earned through careful observation and long experience. Let this be a small reminder to loosen any tightness in your neck or jaw. You are simply listening, resting, and allowing your thoughts to settle naturally. During these long winters, even the daylight felt delicate. A faint glow would stretch across the land just enough to guide travelers through their tasks before night returned. Shadows were long, stretching across the snow like soft brushstrokes. People learned to accomplish their work during these brief hours, then gather together as the darkness settled once more. Inside their shelters, warmth was treasured. The subtle glow from a small controlled fire gave comfort, but its heat was understood as a blessing allowed by the one who provides warmth and ease. People sat close, sharing stories in soft voices, listening to the wind outside while relaxing into the safety of their simple dwellings. Allow this image to soften your own thoughts as well. As the wind shaped the land outside, communities shaped their days with calm rhythm. They repaired tools, prepared food, and monitored the sky. They lived with intention, balancing caution with quiet resilience. Their routines were gentle, slow, and grounded, perfectly suited to a world wrapped in frost. Every so often, let yourself be reminded that you're safe, you're resting, and nothing is required of you right now. You can simply drift with the story. Woolly animals, thickly coated and strong, moved across the frozen plains. Their presence was steady, predictable, and calm. People watched their paths, learning to understand the rhythms of nature through the behavior of these creatures. These quiet observations guided entire seasons of movement and survival. The landscape itself told stories. Ice sheets marked where glacier once passed, carving deep valleys and leaving behind smooth stones. Snowdrifts showed where the wind had been strongest. Even distant mountains wore layers of white, shaped by countless years of storms and gentle thaws. Everything around them spoke in the language of time and patience. As travelers walked across frozen ground, each footstep created a soft, crisp sound, a reminder of how delicate the surface could be. They moved slowly, respecting the land. This wasn't fear, but awareness. A calm understanding that careful steps made the journey safer for everyone in the group. Far from being empty, the Ice Age world felt full of presence. The sky, the wind, the snow, and the distant shapes of animals created a quiet harmony. People living in this era experienced the earth not as a place to rush through, but as a companion that guided their decisions. Let that thought bring a gentle ease to your own breathing. Nights, especially, held a unique beauty. The stars shone brightly above the frozen land, their light reflecting off the ice like tiny scattered lanterns. Travelers resting for the night often looked up and let the vastness of the sky remind them of the greatness and power of the one who created all things. It was a peaceful reminder, not a dramatic one, just a quiet moment of reflection under a cold, steady sky. And so, in this world locked in cold, life continued at its own measured pace. People breathed slowly, observed carefully, and moved gently through a landscape shaped by ice. There was no rush to reach a final destination. The journey itself was the rhythm of life, unfolding one calm step at a time, just as your thoughts, too, can drift slowly into rest. The world before the end of the Ice Age felt like a massive canvas slowly shaped by the movement of frozen giants. Imagine standing in a place where the land itself seems to hum softly, shaped not by sudden events but by patient, steady force. Glaciers stretched across entire regions, pressing down on mountains, smoothing valleys, and carving paths that would define the earth for thousands of years. As you picture these immense sheets of ice, allow your breathing to slow into the same calm, deliberate rhythm. These glaciers didn't rush. They moved with the quiet pace of nature's deepest patience. Over years, centuries, and lifetimes, they pushed forward, carrying rocks, soil, and entire slabs of earth within their frozen bodies. Each shift reshaped the landscape a little more. Hills were rounded, cliffs were softened, and deep channels formed where the ice pressed hardest. Let that image settle in your mind like a slow, steady wave passing through. When you imagine these ancient landscapes, think of long valleys stretching far into the horizon. These valleys were not carved by rivers or storms, but by the gentle persistence of moving ice. As the glacier advanced, they scooped out wide depressions, leaving behind shapes that would later cradle lakes, forests, and fertile plains. Even now, the earth still carries the marks of those ancient motions. Notice how the idea of slow change brings a natural sense of calm. Beneath the weight of the ice, the ground compressed into smooth surfaces. Rocks were polished as if brushed by an enormous hand, leaving curved marks and grooves that scientists still study today. Each groove recorded a direction, a movement, a moment in time. These details remind us that even the strongest landscapes were once softened and shaped by quiet persistence. Let that thought gently ease any lingering tension in your chest or shoulders. Sometimes, the glacier split around obstacles, large boulders, steep ridges, or sturdy cliffs. When that happened, the ice flowed like a river around a stone, wrapping the land in slow, frozen currents. These currents left behind distinctive shapes, creating ridges where the ice hesitated and smooth plains where it surged forward. The earth became a record of motion, written not with ink, but with time and pressure. As you picture these frozen rivers of ice, imagine the sound of the wind traveling across them. Not harsh or violent, but steady, carrying only the soft crackle of distant frost shifting. That sound would blend with the faint creaks deep within the glacier, quiet reminders that even something so massive was always alive with movement. Let your thoughts drift with that sound, light and unhurried. During colder centuries, the glacier reached their greatest size. They covered vast regions, turning forests into icy plains and towering peaks into smooth white domes. This world was different from ours, not chaotic, but serene, slow, and sculpted by the quiet strength of the one who controls all natural forces. Each breath you take now can mirror that gentleness, steady and unforced. When the seasons warmed slightly, meltwater flowed beneath the ice. These hidden rivers carved tunnels under the frozen surface, shaping the ground in ways unseen from above. When the water eventually drained or froze again, it left winding pathways, deep channels, and smooth corridors within the earth. These paths would later guide real rivers, shaping the landscapes people would come to know long after the ice retreated. Every so often, take a moment to soften your breathing and let your thoughts settle. You are simply drifting through a calm story about an ancient world. In some regions, the ice pushed enormous boulders across great distances, carrying them like tiny pebbles. When the glacier eventually melted, these boulders remained, resting alone in open plains or perched on cliffs that seemed too narrow to support them. People who discovered them thousands of years later often wondered how such massive stones arrived in those places. The answer always leads back to the quiet strength of the ice. As the glacier moved, they created sharp contrasts in the land. Deep troughs formed beside tall ridges, and smooth basin-like depressions appeared in otherwise flat areas. These features would later fill with water, becoming lakes that still exist today. From gentle hills to dramatic cliffs, much of what we see in the present world traces back to the Ice Age's slow sculpting. Picture an open plain shaped by the retreating ice, wide, calm, and covered with fine sediment carried for centuries inside frozen walls. This sediment would one day support meadows, forests, and entire ecosystems. In that moment, though, the land was bare and quiet, waiting patiently for warmth to return. Imagine how peaceful and still that place must have felt. Even now, if you travel to certain mountains or valleys, you can see smooth rock faces polished by the passage of ancient glacier. These surfaces feel cool to the touch and carry subtle patterns, lines, curves, and faint grooves, showing the exact direction the ice once moved. They are reminders carved into stone, showing that time shapes everything gently, one moment at a time. Allow yourself a small pause here, a reminder to let go of any busy thoughts. The pace of this story is slow on purpose, guiding your mind toward rest. In many places, the ice left behind long ridges of rocks and soil. These formations, deposited quietly as glacier melted, became natural borders in the landscape. Later communities would use them as landmarks, pathways, or boundaries, often without knowing how they came to be. Yet every part of those ridges whispered the same truth. They were shaped by patience, not force. And in the middle of all this, the land continued to breathe beneath its frozen cover. Mountains stood quietly, rivers flowed beneath the ice, and the sky hovered softly overhead. It was a world in motion, yet deeply peaceful, much like the calm settling slowly into your mind right now. As the glacier continued their slow advance, they carried layers of crushed stone beneath them. This material, ground into fine powder, spread out across the land when the ice retreated. The powder settled into blankets of soft sediment, shaping plains that would one day support grasslands, forests, and entire communities. In those early moments, however, the land remained quiet, just open stretches of pale earth resting under a cool sky. Let that quiet feeling settle gently in your thoughts. When meltwater from the glacier gathered in deep depressions, it formed enormous cold lakes. Some of these lakes were so wide that mist hovered above them during the lightest winds, drifting like soft breath across the surface. The water reflected a sky muted by chill, creating a landscape where color remained subtle and the horizon dissolved into pale blues and grays. Picture these still waters resting peacefully, calm enough to quiet your own mind. Along the edges of the glacier, towering walls of ice sometimes broke away. These breaks were not sudden explosions of chaos, but slow fractures, thick cracks echoing softly across the frozen plains. Large sections slid into nearby valleys, reshaping the land with gentle persistence. After settling, these ice fragments melted gradually, feeding rivers and carving deeper channels. Let the idea of slow, steady change bring ease to your breathing. In some regions, the energy of the meltwater shaped patterns in the soil, braided channels, wide fans of gravel, and winding streams that twisted through open landscapes. These shapes looked almost like delicate artwork spread across the ground, created not by human hands but by the natural flow permitted by the one who directs all creation. Imagining these patterns can feel soothing, like tracing soft lines in sand. Occasionally, large blocks of ice became trapped beneath layers of soil left behind by the retreating glacier. When these buried ice blocks finally melted, the land above them collapsed into bowl-shaped depressions. These depressions later filled with water, becoming small lakes scattered across the plains. Thousands of them dotted the earth, calm, round mirrors reflecting the sky. Allow that image to bring a gentle softness to your thoughts. Think also of the cliffs exposed by the departing ice. Some cliffs revealed ancient layers of rock, stacked like pages in a quiet book of Earth's history. These layers told silent stories about volcanic eruptions, changing climates, and shifting seas that occurred long before any human walked the land. Standing before such cliffs must have felt humbling, an encounter with time itself, slow and vast. You may notice your breathing naturally slowing as these images unfold, and that's perfectly fine. This is a gentle reminder that nothing is required of you right now. As temperatures continued to shift, plants began to take root in the newly exposed soil. At first, only small, hardy grasses grew, thin blades emerging between stones. Then came shrubs, creeping slowly across the plains as the climate allowed. Their growth softened the harshness of the post-glacial land, adding hints of green to the muted landscape. It was a quiet transformation, unfolding season by season. Animals soon returned, stepping carefully across the reshaped ground. Their tracks left patterns in the soft earth, weaving paths between boulders and around shallow lakes. The landscape responded to their presence, becoming part of their migration routes and resting places. Each step they took connected them to a world still settling into its new shape. Rivers carved deeper into the land with every passing year. Some followed paths left behind by ancient meltwater flows, while others created their own winding courses. These rivers brought life to the landscape, carrying fresh water across long distances. Their steady movement brought balance, like the calm movement of your own thoughts drifting through this moment. In the distance, mountains emerged more clearly as the last of the ice melted away. Their peaks, once rounded by frozen pressure, now stood firm against the sky. Valleys between them opened like long corridors leading into new territory. Travelers who explored these valleys would have seen the marks of glacial sculpting everywhere: smooth walls, polished stones, and wide open spaces carved by patience. Allow yourself a moment to soften again, like settling deeper under a blanket. These stories are meant to ease the mind, not demand attention. As the years passed, the land continued to warm, and glacier retreated farther north. Their absence revealed a world both familiar and newly shaped. Lakes sparkled where depressions once lay under ice. Hills rolled gently across regions once pressed flat. The earth wore the marks of glacial movement like quiet reminders of an era dominated by cold and time. By the time the Ice Age fully loosened its grip, the landscapes carved by glacier had become the foundation for future forests, rivers, meadows, and valleys. Everything that followed, every settlement, every migration, every quiet night spent beside a river, was influenced by the patient work of those ancient frozen giants. The world, slowly transformed, was ready for a new chapter. And as you drift through these thoughts, you might feel a sense of calm settling in, just as the land once settled after the glacier withdrew, peaceful and unhurried. In the shadow of vast ice sheets, life pushed forward with a quiet determination. The world looked harsh on the surface: cold winds, pale skies, and long stretches of frozen plains. But beneath that severity lived a surprising resilience. Plants, animals, and communities of early humans learned to adapt, finding ways to thrive in conditions that demanded patience and strength. As you imagine this world, let your breathing settle into an easy, comfortable rhythm. Across those frozen landscapes roamed animals built for endurance. Woolly mammoths, wrapped in thick layers of insulating fur, moved slowly across the plains like gentle, towering silhouettes against the snow. Their massive tusks curved downward as they pushed aside ice to uncover the grasses below. Picture them walking in steady steps, their presence soft and calm rather than fierce. Let that image guide your mind into a state of quiet ease. Nearby, woolly rhinoceroses grazed along frost-covered ridges, their dense coats rippling in the cold breeze. They lived calmly, relying on instinct and the natural order established by the one who created all things. These creatures were not aggressive unless threatened. They spent most of their time wandering, feeding, and conserving energy. Imagining their slow movements can help quiet your own thoughts. Giant deer with wide, sweeping antlers roamed through open meadows that briefly appeared during warmer months. Their antlers, shaped like broad fans, helped them navigate tall, frozen grasses and signal strength to others. During early mornings, their breath formed pale clouds that drifted into the still air. Picture that soft mist rising and fading, as gentle as a sigh. Steppe horses, smaller and sturdier than today's breeds, traveled in close-knit groups. Their hooves broke through crunchy layers of frost with each step, forming narrow trails that stretched across the plains. They relied on one another for warmth and safety, grazing where they could find patches of hardy vegetation. Their presence added warmth to a world that often felt empty from a distance. Every so often, allow yourself to feel how these descriptions naturally slow the pace of your thoughts. You are simply drifting through an ancient landscape, observing without needing to do anything. The predators of this world moved with equal calm and precision. Cave lions, larger than the lions we know today, watched from rocky outcrops or stood quietly in the snow, blending into the pale surroundings. Their hunts were measured, conserving energy in an environment where survival depended on patience. Even the sounds they made were quiet, carried gently by the wind. High on the frozen plateaus, packs of wolves traveled through the snow in graceful lines. Their thick fur shielded them from freezing temperatures, and their coordinated movements helped them navigate difficult landscapes. They were creatures of rhythm, each step measured, each breath purposeful. Envision their tracks forming long, straight patterns behind them, like soft brushstrokes on the snow. Smaller animals also made this frozen world their home. Arctic hares with bright white coats darted between shrubs, their fur blending perfectly with the surrounding snow. Lemmings tunneled beneath the surface, creating warm pockets of shelter that protected them from harsh winds. These tiny creatures played essential roles in the ecosystem, quietly balancing life beneath the ice. During short summer months, the land came alive with color. Grasses pushed through melted patches of earth, and small flowers bloomed in bursts of yellow, white, and purple. Birds returned, their wings slicing through cool air as they searched for nesting sites. The world felt different during these moments, still cold, still vast, but touched with renewed hope and gentle transformation. Close your eyes for a moment, if you'd like, and picture that brief summer landscape. The sound of distant flowing water, the soft rustle of animals grazing, the gentle warmth permitted by the one who brings seasons into balance. Notice how these images bring a comfortable heaviness to your thoughts. Communities of early humans also adapted to this environment with remarkable skill. They watched the behavior of animals carefully, learning migration patterns and using them to guide their own movements. Their understanding of nature wasn't rushed or forced. It was formed through years of close observation, shaped by gratitude and reliance on the natural provisions granted to them. They built temporary shelters in areas where food was available and moved when resources changed. Their homes were simple but effective, designed with the intention of preserving warmth. Inside, families shared quiet conversations, repaired tools, and prepared for the next day with patience and cooperation. Imagine the glow of a small fire inside such a shelter, casting soft light against the ground. Their diet changed with the seasons. During colder months, they relied more heavily on preserved foods and whatever the land provided. During brief warm periods, they gathered plants, berries, and herbs, storing what they could. Their lives were built on balance, never taking more than necessary, always mindful of the fragile environment around them. Life emerging in such harsh environments might seem unlikely at first, but when viewed closely, the world reveals itself as full of hidden strength. Each plant, each animal, each person moved with intention, adapting to the challenges with calm resilience. And as you drift deeper into this story, perhaps you, too, can feel that quiet resilience settling gently within you. As seasons shifted across the Ice Age landscape, the smallest changes in temperature shaped the rhythms of life. A slightly warmer breeze signaled migrating herds to begin moving, while a colder wind warned families to prepare their shelters. Every decision, whether made by animals or early humans, responded to subtle cues in the environment. This quiet sensitivity allowed them not just to survive, but to coexist harmoniously with the land. Let the thought of such gentle awareness slow your own breathing. During the rare warm months, riverbanks became gathering places. Meltwater flowed steadily over rocks, creating sounds that echoed softly across the plains. Herd animals drank from the edges while birds dipped their wings in the cool water. Early humans often rested near these rivers too, using the flowing water for drinking, cooking, and cleaning. Provisions made possible by the will of the one who provides for all creation. Imagine sitting beside such a river, feeling its calm presence. As the land warmed temporarily, insects emerged in quiet swarms. Hovering above patches of grass, they became vital parts of the food chain. Birds fed on them, small animals relied on them, and the ecosystem regained balance after long months of cold. These tiny, almost invisible creatures played a crucial role, reminding us that life continues even in the most challenging environments. The skies during this time carried their own unique character. On certain evenings, long bands of light stretched across the horizon. These weren't displays of magic or superstition, simply natural reactions of sunlight interacting with atmospheric ice crystals. Early humans watched these shifting colors with calm curiosity, not worship or ritual, but quiet appreciation for the world created by the one who controls the heavens. Occasionally, storms rolled across the plains with heavy snowfall. These storms didn't roar with intensity. Instead, they moved like thick blankets, covering the land in fresh layers of white. The air would fall almost completely silent during these moments, the sound of snowflakes absorbing every noise. Families stayed inside shelters, listening to the gentle hush, waiting patiently for the storm to pass. Allow yourself a brief pause here, letting that image of soft snowfall bring ease to your thoughts. Nothing else is needed from you right now. In the days following heavy snow, the landscape transformed again. Tracks left by animals disappeared, creating smooth expanses untouched by prints or paths. Early humans had to rediscover where herds had moved, reading subtle signs in the snow, broken branches, scattered tufts of fur, or slight indentations shaped by hooves. This quiet tracking required immense patience and deep knowledge of the land. During particularly cold stretches, animals and humans alike relied on stored food. Herds dug through layers of snow to reach hardy grasses, while families rationed their supplies carefully. Their ability to endure came from consistency, not desperation. They trusted the cycles of nature, understanding that warmth would eventually return, even if only briefly. The harsh environment also shaped the social bonds of early human groups. Cooperation wasn't optional, it was essential. Tasks were shared, tools exchanged, and knowledge passed from one person to another. In the steady glow of evening fires, families discussed migration paths, weather changes, and the small victories of the day. These quiet conversations strengthened their sense of unity. As the world around them demanded endurance, early humans developed strong habits of observation. They watched the behavior of birds to anticipate storms, felt the ground for subtle vibrations, and studied the migration patterns of animals. These skills weren't born from superstition or ritual, but from practical understanding, guided by the natural order set by the Creator of all things. Even predators, living with their own challenges, adapted with care. They conserved energy, avoided unnecessary risks, and moved with a grace shaped by instinct. Their survival depended on thoughtful choices rather than constant aggression. Seeing their tracks in the snow reminded early humans that each creature, large or small, played a role in the balance of life. Take a moment to let that sense of balance settle into your own thoughts. Let the pace of this story guide your mind toward rest. As generations passed, knowledge deepened. Communities learned which valleys sheltered them from the strongest winds and which plateaus exposed them to danger. They developed routes that offered the most reliable food sources, returning to favored places each year with gratitude. This rhythm created a sense of continuity, a calm familiarity amid the vast, cold world. Though the environment remained harsh, life persisted with quiet determination. Animals grazed, families traveled, and the land, steady and unhurried, continued its slow cycle of change. Each living being interacted with the world in a way that respected the delicate balance created for them. And as you drift with these thoughts, you may feel your own mind softening into that same rhythm, a gentle, patient pace shaped by calm, steady breath. Life for early communities during the Ice Age unfolded in gentle, rhythmic patterns shaped by necessity and patience. Each day began slowly, with members of the group emerging from their shelters to observe the sky, the snow, and the subtle changes in the environment. There was no rush, no frantic pace, only quiet recognition of what the day might require. Let the simplicity of their morning rhythm ease your mind into a calmer state. Shelters were modest but warm, built to protect families from harsh winds. Some were made from sturdy wooden frames covered with animal hides, while others were nestled against natural formations like rocks or shallow cave entrances. Inside, soft layers of furs covered the ground, creating a space where families could rest, share warmth, and begin their day with calm gratitude for the comfort allowed to them. Imagine stepping into such a shelter, feeling warmth wrap around your shoulders. Fire was central to their routine, but it wasn't merely a tool. It was a gentle companion that provided heat through the will of the one who makes fire beneficial. In the quiet mornings, someone would tend to the embers, coaxing them back to life with careful breaths and small pieces of kindling. The soft crackle of flames brought a steady peace to the shelter, marking the start of another day in a frozen world. Breakfast was simple and practical. Families shared preserved foods gathered or prepared during warmer seasons, dried meat, roots, berries, and whatever the land had offered them earlier in the year. Meals weren't hurried. They were moments of calm connection, where the group sat close, saving energy and conserving warmth. Picture the gentle silence of people quietly eating together, wrapped in thick layers, listening to the wind outside. When daylight arrived, tasks were divided among members of the group. Hunters prepared their tools, checking points, sharpening edges, and adjusting straps. Gatherers planned short journeys to search for plants or materials, choosing paths that minimized exposure to the cold. These preparations were done in steady, thoughtful motions, without waste or haste. Allow that sense of purposeful calm to settle into you. Children played quietly near the shelter, learning by observing the adults. They practiced simple tasks, tying knots, arranging stones, or tracing patterns in the snow. These activities helped them understand the world around them, forming early skills they would rely on as they grew. Their laughter was soft and brief, carried away gently by the wind. As the hunters set out, they walked in small groups, their steps steady and deliberate. They read the land with practiced eyes, following animal tracks, noticing disturbed snow, and studying the direction of the wind. Each movement was an act of awareness, shaped by generations of knowledge and a deep respect for the life around them. This unhurried pace helped them conserve energy and stay attuned to their surroundings. Gatherers also moved with intention. During warmer periods, they collected plants, herbs, and small edible roots. In colder months, they searched for frozen berries or durable materials like branches and stones. Every discovery, no matter how small, contributed to the survival of the group. Their journeys created a woven pattern across the landscape, paths that shifted gently with the needs of the season. Allow yourself to imagine the quiet of these journeys, the soft crunch of snow underfoot, the gentle breaths in cold air, the distant cries of birds crossing the winter sky. These details shape the rhythm of their days, creating a steady, calming soundscape that mirrors the pace of your own breathing. Tools played an essential role in daily life. Early humans carved them from bone, wood, and stone with remarkable precision. A single blade or scraper might take hours of careful shaping, each stroke guided by experience and patience. These tools were valued not just for their usefulness, but for the skill and time invested in creating them. Think of the quiet concentration required, and let that image soften your thoughts. Inside the shelters, those who stayed behind continued their own tasks. They mended clothing, crafted new cords or bindings, and prepared food to be cooked later. The atmosphere inside was warm and steady, filled with the soft movements of hands working in slow rhythm. This peaceful domestic routine balanced the harsher realities of the world outside. Throughout the day, The group communicated with simple gestures and quiet voices. There was no need for loud conversation. The stillness of the environment encouraged calm tones and careful words. They relied on subtle cues, glances, nods, hand signals, to share information and maintain harmony. This gentle communication style helped preserve energy and reduce stress. As afternoon light began to fade, some members returned early to prepare the shelter for night. They arranged furs, checked for drafts, and ensured that the fire remained steady. Each action contributed to the group's safety and comfort during long, cold nights. Their preparations reflected a calm understanding of their environment, not fear. During the final hours of daylight, families reunited. Hunters shared their findings, gatherers showed what they had collected, and everyone took a moment to appreciate the day's efforts. Even if the results were small, the group understood that every contribution mattered. Their gratitude was quiet, expressed through simple gestures and shared warmth. With the day winding down, the community settled into a familiar rhythm: soft voices, steady firelight, and the sound of wind brushing against the shelter. This gentle ending mirrored the way their mornings began, closing the cycle of a simple, purposeful day lived in harmony with the land. As night settled gently across the frozen landscape, the community's focus shifted toward rest. The crackling fire inside the shelter became the center of attention, offering light and steady warmth. Families adjusted their seating around it, making sure everyone, especially the youngest and oldest, remained comfortable. The glow reflected softly on their faces, creating a peaceful atmosphere that eased the tension of the day. Let that image of dim, warm light help your thoughts soften. Outside, the world grew impossibly still. Snow muffled each sound, creating a quiet that felt almost like a blanket pulled over the land. The distant calls of animals grew faint, blending into the wind until they seemed part of the night itself. Early humans listened to this silence with a sense of familiarity. It was not frightening. It was simply the natural rhythm of life, a reminder that rest is an essential part of survival. Inside the shelter, stories floated between family members. These weren't grand tales or loud performances, just gentle recollections of memorable hunts, past journeys, or lessons learned from the land. Adults spoke in calm voices, and children listened with quiet curiosity. These nightly conversations strengthened the bonds within the group, giving everyone a sense of belonging and connection. When food was available, a warm meal marked the end of the day. The aroma filled the shelter, comforting and grounding. Meals were humble: simple stews, roasted roots, or preserved meat warmed over the fire. They ate slowly, savoring each bite with gratitude for the provisions given to them. As you picture this meal, let its warmth ease your mind, as if you too are sheltered from the cold. After eating, tools were inspected once more. Hunters checked spears and blades for damage, while others made small repairs using whatever materials they had gathered. These tasks were done calmly, without urgency. This steady preparation was part of their rhythm, a quiet assurance that tomorrow, whatever it brought, would be met with readiness rather than fear. The youngest members of the community often drifted towards sleep first. Wrapped in furs, they curled close to their families, lulled by the gentle crackling of the fire and the soft murmur of adults speaking nearby. Their slow breaths filled the shelter with a comforting rhythm. Just imagining that soft breathing may help your own settle into a calmer pace. As the night deepened, the adults became quieter too. Some sat in reflective silence, watching the fires glow dim and brighten with each movement of the embers. Others rested their hands on their knees, simply listening to the fire, to the wind, to the faint movements of others around them. In these moments, the entire shelter felt like a single heartbeat in a vast, frozen world. Occasionally, someone would step outside for a moment, checking the weather or scanning for signs of animals. The night sky stretched above them, filled with stars shining in the cold air. They would take a slow breath, feel the chill on their face, then return to the warmth inside. The contrast between outside and inside made the shelter feel even more comforting. The community rested according to the hours of darkness. Some slept early, while others stayed awake to tend the fire or keep watch. These roles rotated, shared among the group so no one grew weary. It was a system of cooperation shaped by necessity and strengthened by trust. Knowing they could rely on one another brought a quiet sense of security to every person in the shelter. Even while resting, the group remained attentive to subtle changes. The sound of shifting snow, the distant movement of animals, or the soft groan of ice settling. These cues guided them, reminding them that the world outside was always alive, always shifting. This awareness was not anxious. It was a calm understanding born from countless generations living close to nature. As the night neared its quietest hour, conversations faded entirely. Only the soft rustle of furs and the gentle breathing of sleepers remained. The fire flickered low, glowing like a warm ember at the center of their world. Around it, bodies rested in peaceful shapes, conserving strength for the day ahead. Imagine yourself beside that fire, feeling the same gentle stillness. Sleep came gradually, not forced. Minds drifted into rest, guided by the warmth, the closeness of family, and the steady rhythm of the shelter. In that calm space, the worries of the day dissolved into softness, replaced by trust in the provisions granted to them and the safety of their community. By the time the stars shifted overhead, the entire shelter had settled into deep, collective rest. Outside, the frozen world stretched on, silent, vast, and undisturbed. Inside, warmth and unity held strong. Their daily lives may have been challenging, but their nights carried a peace born from routine, cooperation, and gratitude. And as this chapter of their day closes, perhaps you too can feel that same gentle quiet settling around you, steady, warm, and unhurried. In the quiet world of the Ice Age, tools were more than objects. They were extensions of patience, observation, and careful skill. Early humans shaped every piece with intention, knowing that a well-made tool could support their survival for many seasons. The slow rhythm of carving, sharpening, and testing became a part of daily life. As you imagine these steady movements, let your own thoughts slow into the same gentle pace. Stone was one of the most reliable materials they used. Smooth river stones, hardened over centuries, were shaped into blades, scrapers, and cutting points. The process was calm and methodical. A soft tap here, a careful chip there. Each strike removed tiny fragments, revealing a sharper edge. The sound of stone shaping stone echoed softly, small, rhythmic clicks that blended with the natural soundscape around them. Bone offered a different kind of strength. Hunters saved sturdy leg bones from large animals, carving them into needles, awls, and fishing points. These tools were lightweight yet durable, shaped with respect for the creature they came from and with awareness that their usefulness came through the will of the one who provides resources from the earth. Picture the gentle scraping sound as bone is polished smooth. Wood, when available, became handles, shafts, and support structures. Because cold climates made wood scarce, every piece was valued. Early humans softened it over small fires, gently bending it into the shapes they needed. This warmth made the wood more flexible, easier to work with. Imagine the soft glow of firelight on their hands as they shaped each piece with patience. Some tools required several materials combined into one. A spear, for example, might include a sharpened stone point fitted onto a carved wooden shaft and secured with bindings made from dried plant fibers or sinew. These multi-part tools represented the highest form of ingenuity, where knowledge, experience, and quiet creativity all came together. Let this careful craftsmanship soothe your thoughts. Tasks like scraping hides or preparing food were made easier through specialized tools. Scrapers smoothed animal skins, removing imperfections to make clothing stronger and warmer. Blades sliced roots and meat with clean precision. Early humans used each tool deliberately, appreciating its role in their daily routines. Their intentionality can encourage your mind to settle into a thoughtful, restful state. Inside their shelters, the creation of tools became a shared activity. Someone shaped stone, another braided fibers, while others prepared the materials needed for binding or carving. The soft blend of different sounds, tapping stone, smoothing bone, twisting rope, created a gentle, steady rhythm. Imagine being inside that warm shelter, hearing those small, calm noises echo quietly around you. Children learned these skills by watching first, then by practicing under guidance. They shaped small stones, tried tying simple knots, or carved soft pieces of wood. Their early attempts were imperfect, but each effort helped them build confidence. Learning was not stressful. It was a natural part of life, unfolding slowly over many seasons. This easeful way of growth mirrors the relaxed pace you might feel right now. Clothing also relied on careful craftsmanship. Animal hides were softened, stitched, and layered to provide warmth. Bone needles helped families sew pieces together, creating garments that protected them from the biting cold. Every stitch, every pull of the thread carried purpose. Picture the gentle movement of hands sewing in the glow of firelight, creating warmth with steady effort. Footwear was especially important. Early humans crafted thick boots using layers of fur and hide, tying them securely to survive long walks through snow and ice. These boots provided insulation and protection, making travel safer and more comfortable. The process of preparing them was meticulous, requiring multiple hands and hours of focused work. Even simple containers made of woven fibers or stitched hides showed impressive creativity. These containers carried food, tools, and small supplies. They were lightweight, durable, and shaped to suit the community's needs. Imagine the texture of the woven fibers or the softness of carefully treated hide, each serving a purpose in daily survival. Allow yourself a gentle pause here. These slow, deliberate skills reflect a world where nothing was rushed and every action had meaning. Let that sense of calm flow through your breathing. Fishing tools also played an important role in communities living near rivers. Bone hooks, sharpened with precision, were tied to cords braided from plant fibers. Spears with multiple prongs helped catch fish in shallow waters. People stood quietly at the river's edge, observing the movement of fish beneath the icy surface, waiting patiently for the right moment. Snow and ice demanded their own types of tools. Digging sticks helped break compacted snow, while flat wooden boards were used to transport heavier objects across slippery ground. These practical innovations made life easier, one small improvement at a time. Even simple adjustments, an extra binding here, a sharper edge there, reflected their problem-solving mindset. Each tool, no matter how basic, was maintained with care. Edges were sharpened, handles repaired, bindings replaced. Early humans understood that tools were lifelines, crafted through effort and sustained through attention. Their dedication to maintaining what they created is a quiet reminder of the beauty found in simple responsibility. And as these communities shaped their tools with patience and intention, they also shaped their connection with the land. One calm, deliberate action at a time, much like how your thoughts might now be moving in a slower, softer rhythm. Tools also shaped the way early humans interacted with the environment. They learned which stones fractured cleanly, which bones held the strongest fibers, and which woods could bend without breaking. This knowledge didn't arrive suddenly. It developed slowly, across many seasons of trial, observation, and gentle refinement. Each generation added new understanding, passing it quietly to the next. Let the idea of slow learning settle softly into your thoughts. Carving tools required patience. A single misaligned strike could ruin hours of work, so early humans approached each movement with calm focus. The process was almost meditative, lifting a stone, tapping it gently, brushing away fragments, then studying the new edge. This quiet rhythm created moments of stillness even in harsh environments. Imagining that steady pattern can help guide your mind into its own slower pace. Some tools required cooperative effort. One person held the handle steady while another attached bindings, and a third prepared the final edge. These shared tasks strengthened their sense of unity. Working together wasn't just practical, it created comfort, knowing that survival was a shared responsibility. Picture the calm teamwork inside a warm shelter, hands moving with careful coordination. Binding materials were crafted with equal attention. Sinew from animals was dried and twisted into strong threads, while plant fibers were braided with practiced skill. These bindings held tools securely, allowing them to endure long journeys and cold conditions. The creation of these fibers produced gentle rustling sounds, soft, repetitive motions that eased the mind. Let that subtle texture fill your imagination with quiet. Sharpening stones were prized possessions. Families carried them through migrations, storing them safely with their most important belongings. Using them required slow, steady strokes, pulling a blade across the surface, listening for the faint scrape that signaled progress. This sound, barely audible, became part of the comforting background of daily life. In colder regions, tools sometimes froze overnight. Mornings were spent warming them near the fire, ensuring they remained functional before the group began their tasks. Watching a tool regain flexibility or strength under gentle heat reminded the community of the natural balance they relied upon. How warmth, provided by the will of the one who grants it, supported their daily efforts. Allow yourself a brief pause here. Imagine that soft warmth spreading through chilled metal or bone, and let your breathing match that gentle thaw. Specialized carrying tools also emerged. People wove straps to distribute weight across their shoulders, making long journeys easier. These straps, though simple, showed thoughtful design, wide enough to prevent discomfort, strong enough to hold heavy loads. Their practicality helped families move safely across vast distances, reinforcing the importance of seemingly small innovations. Some communities created sled-like structures for dragging supplies over ice. These devices were made from wood when available or from layered hides stretched over frames. They allowed heavier items to glide across snow, reducing strain during long migrations. The soft scraping sound they produced against the snow created a calming, repetitive rhythm. Tool repair was a daily ritual. Even after long journeys or difficult hunts, the community took time to sit together and mend what was damaged. This practice wasn't rushed. It was simply part of their routine. Each repaired handle or tightened binding symbolized resilience, a reminder that careful maintenance ensured safety and continuity. As communities became skilled in crafting, they also explored subtle improvements. A sharper angle here, a lighter handle there. These refinements weren't dramatic, yet they made life slightly easier. Innovation wasn't driven by urgency. It flowed naturally from quiet experimentation and respect for the materials they used. Their resourcefulness extended even to small fragments left behind after carving. Tiny shards of stone became cutting flakes, while leftover fibers became knots or bindings for smaller tools. Nothing was wasted. This mindful use of resources reflected gratitude for the provisions placed in their environment. Children gradually learned the meaning of each tool, how to hold it, how to care for it, how to respect it. They watched closely as adults worked, absorbing lessons through silent observation before practicing with small, harmless versions. Their learning process was peaceful, guided by patience rather than pressure. Inside the shelter at night, tools were stored in designated places, organized neatly to ensure easy access in the morning. Families took pride in this order, finding comfort in the familiarity of the arrangement. The presence of these tools, their shapes, their stories, their usefulness, brought a sense of security to the quiet nights. And as these early communities shaped tools with deliberate care, they also shaped a way of life defined by resilience, creativity, and calm perseverance. Their ingenuity reveals not only their skill, but their steady acceptance of the world around them. As you rest with these thoughts, perhaps you can feel your own mind settle into that same patient rhythm. In the vast, open world of the Ice Age, early humans learned to follow the rhythms of migrating animals. These herds traveled through valleys, across frozen plains, and along ancient paths carved gently into the land by generations before them. By watching their movements, communities found food, safety, and direction. This relationship between humans and animals wasn't chaotic or frantic. It was steady, quiet, and shaped by patient observation. Let that steady rhythm guide your mind into a softer pace. The woolly mammoth was one of the most reliable guides. Their slow, deliberate steps formed natural trails through deep snow, making travel safer for everyone who followed. These giants moved with a calm certainty, seeking areas with exposed grasses or softer winds. Early humans walked behind them from a respectful distance, studying their behavior, reading their tracks, and allowing the mammoth's choices to shape their own paths. Other herds, like sturdy steppe horses, moved in wide arcs across the frozen plains. Their migrations aligned with seasonal changes, offering clues about where food might be found. Early humans trusted these patterns, knowing that animals sense the land shifts long before any visible sign appeared. Imagine standing on a quiet hill, watching a wide curve of horses move like a gentle wave across the frost. Reindeer herds created their own routes across icy ridges, traveling in tight groups that shimmered like a moving silver ribbon. They climbed slopes with ease and crossed frozen rivers with light, careful steps. Following them provided communities with guidance through safer terrain. These animals avoided unstable ice, harsh winds, and deep drifts, teaching humans simply by example. As you picture these migrations, let your breathing follow a slow, even rhythm. The world they moved through was vast, but the pace was unhurried. Wolves also traveled long distances, often trailing the same herds. Their paths were swift and direct, marked by elegant lines of paw prints in the snow. Early humans observed wolves not as threats, but as indicators of movement. When wolves changed direction, it often meant herds ahead had shifted, prompting the people to adjust their own routes. This quiet watching fostered a natural understanding of balance in the ecosystem. In warmer months, birds played a guiding role. Flocks crossed open skies, moving toward regions where plants had begun to grow. Early humans understood this signal instantly, adjusting their pace to find fresh water or new gathering sites. The sound of beating wings overhead echoed softly across the plains, blending with the cool breeze like a gentle reminder of the changing season. Some migrations took communities across frozen lakes. The surface, smooth and pale, stretched endlessly in front of them. Mammoth herds tested the ice first, stepping with great care. If the ice held under such heavy weight, humans knew the path was safe. They crossed slowly, listening for any subtle changes in the ice beneath their steps. Imagine the stillness of those crossings, the soft crunch of snow, the distant calls of animals, and the quiet echo beneath frozen water. Throughout these journeys, the land itself became a teacher. A broken branch signaled fresh movement. A patch of disturbed snow hinted at passing herds. A cluster of tracks revealed the direction of travel. Early humans read these signs with the same ease we read letters on a page. This knowledge came from patience, humility, and gratitude for the guidance built into the natural world. Allow yourself a gentle pause here, letting your mind drift with the idea of following quiet signs left in the snow. During difficult winters, following animals was not only helpful, it was essential. Herds instinctively traveled to regions with more shelter, warmer winds, or accessible grazing areas. When early humans followed these migrations, they found safer ground as well. Moving alongside these animals created a silent partnership, shaped not by force, but by mutual reliance on the rhythms written into creation. At rest stops during long migrations, families observed herds grazing or resting nearby. They studied the way animals handled harsh winds, how mammoths positioned themselves, how horses grouped tightly for warmth, how reindeer used ridges as natural shields. These observations influenced human decisions, helping them choose where to set up temporary shelters and when to keep moving. Predators also shaped movement. When large predators changed direction, early humans took it as a signal that something deeper in the landscape had shifted. Instead of reacting with panic, they responded with thoughtful adjustments, altering their route, increasing their pace, or pausing to reassess the land. Their calm, deliberate choices helped them move safely across great distances. By walking behind migrating herds, communities also avoided expending unnecessary energy. The trails flattened by mammoths and horses created natural pathways, making travel easier and reducing fatigue. Every careful step helped them conserve strength for the long journeys ahead. Picture these shared paths stretching across open plains, connecting one region to another like threads sewn softly through fabric. Carrying supplies was easier on these trails as well. Sleds glided more smoothly, children found firmer footing, and elders walked with steadier balance. The path created by the animals offered not just direction, but comfort, something reliable to follow in a world where the landscape changed constantly. And as these communities moved with the herds, they became part of a wider rhythm of life. Each journey connected them not only to the animals, but to the land and the subtle balance that sustained them. In this world of ice and silence, following the animals meant following the gentle guidance placed within nature itself. As the communities traveled behind migrating herds, they developed an intuitive sense of timing. They knew when to slow down, when to press forward, and when to rest, all based on the behavior of the animals ahead. This natural alignment brought a comforting rhythm to their journeys. Moving with the land rather than against it allowed them to conserve strength and remain attuned to small changes around them. Let that steady alignment sink gently into your thoughts. Some herds followed ancient routes that crossed mountain passes. These passes could be steep, cold, and exposed to strong winds, but the animals always found the safest angles of ascent and descent. Early humans trusted these instincts, stepping exactly where the herds had walked. The marks left behind, deep impressions in the snow, were like quiet guides leading them upward. As you picture those winding paths, feel your mind loosen into a slow, relaxed drift. Crossing valleys brought different challenges. Winds gathered speed between the slopes, carrying snow that danced like pale mist. Yet even here, the direction of herds revealed the gentler routes, areas where snow lay thin or the ground remained firm beneath the frost. People learned to follow the curves of these valleys, letting the animals' movements help them navigate difficult terrain with calm certainty. Occasionally, herds stopped near sheltered ridges to rest or graze. Early humans took these pauses as opportunities to refresh themselves as well. They set down their packs, stretched their limbs, and studied the horizon. Children played quietly in the snow, leaving small tracks beside the deeper prints of the herds. These moments of stillness brought peace to long journeys, like slow breaths taken between steady steps. Allow yourself a gentle pause as well, letting your thoughts settle into a soft, effortless rhythm. As seasons shifted toward colder periods, migrations became even more important. Food grew scarce, and the land hardened under deeper snow. Herds sought protected areas where vegetation remained accessible, and the communities followed, grateful for the guidance embedded within the natural world. Each step brought them closer to safer ground, led not by haste, but by steady, patient movement. Sometimes, the herds turned abruptly, reacting to distant changes in the weather. A shift in the wind, a faint vibration in the snow, or the scent of an approaching storm, all were signals animals sensed before humans could. When the herds changed course, communities adapted instantly. They trusted these subtle warnings, altering their path with calm acceptance. This flexibility helped them survive unexpected challenges. Predators continued to influence these migrations as well. When wolves gathered in greater numbers near a particular herd, it often meant the animals had moved toward richer feeding grounds. Early humans interpreted these signs with thoughtful attention. Instead of avoiding wolves entirely, they observed them from a distance, understanding they were part of the land's balance. During long journeys, families camped beside well-worn trails. The ground carried countless overlapping tracks from seasons of migration, deep grooves from mammoth feet, elegant prints from reindeer, and straight-lined paths from wolves. These layered traces told stories of movement, adaptation, and survival. Sitting near them, early humans felt connected not only to the animals but to generations before them who had followed the same routes. On calmer nights, the sounds of resting herds filled the air, soft huffs, gentle stomps, and the slow shifting of heavy bodies. These sounds blended with the wind, creating a peaceful, natural lullaby across the plains. Imagine lying beneath a thick fur covering, hearing those distant movements as you drift slowly toward sleep. In warmer seasons, the migrations brought communities to areas rich with plants. They gathered berries, roots, and herbs, storing what they could for future months. At the same time, herds grazed nearby, breathing rhythm into the landscape. This coexistence created moments of harmony, a shared reliance on the land's provision. Traveling with the herds also meant encountering new sights. Glacial ridges, frozen rivers, quiet valleys, and open meadows revealed themselves along the way. Each scene carried its own calm beauty, shaped by the same forces that guided both humans and animals across the land. These changing landscapes added depth to their journey, like soft chapters unfolding one after another. As the sun dipped low in the sky, communities prepared to rest. They positioned themselves where herds had settled, knowing the animal's choice of resting ground was shaped by instinct and natural cues. These resting places offered shelter from winds and easier access to food. Humans rested with gratitude, trusting in the wisdom written quietly into creation. By moving alongside animals, early humans formed a deep connection with the land. They walked not as solitary travelers but as participants in a larger pattern, one that flowed through mountains, across plains, and over frozen lakes. Their survival wasn't just about strength or skill. It was about listening, observing, and respecting the rhythms placed within nature. And as this gentle segment comes to a close, perhaps you, too, can feel yourself aligned with a calmer rhythm, steady, quiet, and unhurried. In a world shaped by ice and shifting seasons, early communities learned to recognize the quiet protection offered by natural shelters. These places weren't built or forced into existence. They were discovered, appreciated, and used with deep awareness of the land's natural design. Caves, overhangs, and sheltered ridges provided refuge from harsh winds, offering warmth and calm in the midst of a frozen environment. As you imagine stepping into such a place, feel your own thoughts soften into stillness. Caves were among the most reliable shelters. Their stone walls held steady warmth, protecting families from biting wind and swirling snow. Inside, the air felt calm and unmoving, as though the cave itself were taking a slow, steady breath. Early humans arranged furs along the floor, creating pockets of comfort where they could rest. Picture the soft glow of a controlled fire reflecting gently on those stone walls, filling the space with peaceful warmth. Rock overhangs provided lighter but effective protection. These natural roofs shielded communities from snowfall, allowing them to set up temporary camps underneath. The overhangs created a dry space where families could prepare food, repair tools, or rest between journeys. The sound of snow falling outside, muted by the rock above, created a soothing backdrop, like a soft, continuous hush easing everyone into calm. Ridges and hillsides also offered shelter. By resting on the sheltered side of a slope, early humans avoided strong winds that swept across open plains. These slopes acted as natural barriers, reducing the cold and creating small pockets of still air. A simple shift in position, just a few steps to the side of a ridge, could change the entire feeling of the environment, bringing comfort without wasting energy or resources. During migrations, communities learned to spot windbreaks in the landscape. Dense clusters of shrubs, fallen logs, and large boulders created small protected spaces where traveling groups could pause for warmth. These weren't permanent homes, but they offered enough shelter to rest, eat, and regain strength. Imagine crouching behind one of these windbreaks, feeling the harsh breeze transform into a gentle whisper. Allow yourself a small pause here, letting this imagery settle gently in your mind. Sometimes, snow itself became a form of protection. Packed snow could be shaped into low walls that blocked wind, creating a calm pocket where families could gather. These simple structures didn't rely on tools, just hands, patience, and the natural firmness of compacted snow. When combined with a carefully placed fire, these snow barriers made cold nights more bearable. Temporary hide shelters were another important innovation. Families stretched animal hides over wooden frames, creating tents that stood firm against winter storms. The hides were thick and insulating, holding warmth inside while keeping out drifting snow. Inside these shelters, firelight glowed softly against the hide walls, creating a warm, comforting ambience that helped the group unwind after long days of travel. Some communities used a combination of natural formations and handmade structures. A rock wall might serve as the back of the shelter, while hides or branches formed the roof and sides. These blended shelters offered the strength of stone and the flexibility of portable materials. The result was a cozy, steady refuge that felt both familiar and protective. Even fallen trees created opportunities for shelter. A large trunk lying across the snow, combined with branches laid on top, formed a natural lean-to. Families could sit beneath it, shielded from snowfall while staying close to the warmth of their fire. These simple lean-tos were quick to build and surprisingly effective, showing how early humans used every part of the landscape with thoughtful creativity. In areas near mountains, narrow crevices provided tightly enclosed spaces perfect for single families. These cozy niches blocked wind from multiple directions, offering natural warmth. Early humans placed furs along the stone and rested in these tucked-away spaces, listening to the distant echoes of wind outside. The closeness of these crevices created a sense of safety that soothed weary travelers. When communities found sheltered riverbanks, they often stayed for several days. The river provided water, fish, and protection, while nearby trees or rock formations shielded them from the cold. The gentle sound of flowing water offered a calming background noise that helped families relax and sleep more deeply. During warmer months, temporary shelters became lighter and more open. Simple wooden frameworks covered with branches allowed air to circulate while still providing shade and comfort. These seasonal shelters reflected the natural shift in temperature and needs, showing that early humans lived in harmony with the land rather than against it. Children learned about shelter by watching their families select safe places to rest. They observed how adults tested the stability of overhangs, checked for animal tracks inside caves, and positioned shelters to avoid strong winds. These lessons gave them confidence and taught them to respect the land's natural protections. Allow another gentle breath here, slow, steady, and unforced. Natural shelters also shaped social routines. Families arranged their sleeping areas close together, sharing warmth and creating a sense of unity. Even in the coldest conditions, these shared spaces offered comfort and reassurance. The presence of others, the security of stone walls, and the quiet glow of firelight created a peaceful environment that eased them into sleep. And so, through observation and quiet ingenuity, early humans found safety in the natural formations around them. Their temporary homes were simple but effective, soft pockets of warmth in a world ruled by ice, shaping peaceful routines that helped them endure the challenges of each season. As the seasons shifted, shelters needed to adapt as well. Temporary homes in warmer months looked different from those built during the coldest nights. Families used lighter materials, branches, leaves, and woven grasses to create airy structures that allowed cool breezes to pass through. These shelters were comfortable, simple, and easy to dismantle when it was time to move. Imagine resting beneath one, feeling the soft rustle of leaves overhead. During longer migrations, groups often returned to familiar shelters they had used in previous years. A certain cave, a particular overhang, or a well-protected grove might become a seasonal resting place. These locations held memories, quiet conversations, shared meals, and nights spent listening to the calm wind. Returning to them brought a sense of reassurance, like revisiting a gentle pause in a long journey. Some shelters were chosen not only for protection, but for their connection to water. Freshwater springs, flowing rivers, and shallow lakes offered essential resources. Near these waters, the ground was often softer and plant life more abundant. Families built simple camps nearby, balancing the advantages of water with the need for safety. The continuous flow of water created a background sound that eased tired minds. Allow yourself a gentle moment here to imagine that soft, flowing sound settling into your thoughts. Deep forests also offered natural protection. Tall trees blocked wind, and their branches formed dense canopies that shielded the ground from snowfall. Early humans positioned their shelters within these forests carefully, choosing areas with stable footing and good visibility. The scent of pine, the crunch of leaves underfoot, and the filtered light through branches created a comforting environment where families could rest and gather strength. In regions with abundant grasses, early humans crafted woven mats to line the floors of their shelters. These mats provided insulation, comfort, and a clean surface for sitting or sleeping. The act of weaving, threading strands over and under, created a soothing rhythm that filled the shelter with soft, repetitive motions. This tactile work helped calm the mind after long days of travel. Snow dens were another creative adaptation. In extremely cold areas, families carved small chambers into deep snow, shaping compact walls that insulated more effectively than you might expect. Inside these snow dens, temperatures remained surprisingly stable. The sound within was gentle and muted, as though the outside world had faded to a distant hum. Imagine sitting in that quiet space, wrapped in warmth and stillness. The placement of shelters was never random. Families read the land carefully, looking for tracks, listening to the wind, and checking for signs of animal activity. They avoided areas that felt unstable or unsafe. Their choices were guided by experience, observation, and gratitude for the natural signs that helped them find safety. Resting together inside these shelters fostered strong bonds. People shared stories, prepared meals, and planned the next day's journey. They leaned on one another for warmth and comfort, especially during the coldest nights. Such closeness created a sense of unity, helping them endure the challenges outside their temporary homes. The fire inside their shelters glowed steadily, offering warmth and a sense of security. Families fed it small pieces of wood or dried material, keeping it alive without letting it grow too large. Its light flickered on the walls, creating gentle patterns that soothed weary eyes. This shared warmth brought quiet reassurance after long days spent crossing frozen ground. During especially harsh storms, families relied fully on their shelters. Snow piled high outside, winds howled across the plains, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. But inside, wrapped in furs, protected by rock or hide, people felt a sense of stillness. They listened to the storm's distant roar, knowing their shelter held firm. That contrast between outside chaos and inside calm brought deep comfort. Take a long, slow breath here, as though you, too, are resting safely inside a warm shelter while the wind moves gently beyond the walls. When storms cleared, early humans stepped outside to inspect the land. They checked for fallen branches, fresh tracks, or shifts in the snow surface. Their first steps into the bright, cold air were cautious, but not fearful. The shelter behind them had restored their strength, allowing them to greet the day with renewed patience. Some shelters lasted only a night, while others remained in place for weeks. But whether brief or extended, each one played a vital role. These spaces protected families, offered comfort, and provided a place to reconnect. The memory of each shelter became a quiet thread woven through the journey of their lives. And as these early communities moved from shelter to shelter, they developed a deep trust in the land's natural gifts: stone, snow, wood, and windbreaks that held them safely when the world grew cold. Their temporary homes, shaped with gratitude and resourcefulness, became gentle resting places in a vast and ever-changing landscape. As you rest with this thought, perhaps you can feel a similar sense of quiet refuge surrounding your own mind, steady, warm, and peaceful. Long before the Ice Age fully loosened its grip, small signs of change began to appear, subtle hints that warmth was slowly returning to the land. These changes weren't sudden or loud. They moved gently through the environment, like faint ripples across a quiet lake. Early humans noticed these shifts with attentive eyes, sensing that the world was entering a new rhythm. As you picture this slow transformation, let your own thoughts soften into a steady, peaceful flow. The first signs came with the wind. It carried a slightly different feel, less sharp, less biting. Some days, it carried hints of distant thaw, as if the air itself had softened by a fraction. These tiny changes were easy to miss, yet they brought a quiet sense of hope. Early families paused to feel the air on their skin, recognizing that seasons, guided by the will of the one who created them, were gently turning. As temperatures continued to shift, the surfaces of frozen lakes began to react. The ice didn't break dramatically. Instead, faint lines spread slowly across its surface. Soft creaking sounds echoed through the still air, gentle reminders that the frozen world was relaxing its hold. Early humans approached these lakes with curiosity, listening carefully to these new sounds as if the land was speaking in a calm, patient voice. Snow that once stayed firm for months began to soften earlier in the season. Footprints lingered a little longer, sinking deeper into the surface. Children noticed that their steps made a different sound, less crisp, more muffled. These small changes signaled that the sun's warmth, even if faint, was touching the land more reliably each day. Allow yourself a gentle breath here, letting that sensation of slowly returning warmth settle into your imagination. Plants responded quietly. Sturdy grasses pushed through melting patches of snow, unfurling their pale green blades toward the softening sky. Mosses brightened along rocks, adding gentle bursts of color to landscapes that had remained white and gray for so long. These small touches of green felt like promises, subtle, calm reminders that life was ready to grow again. With the thaw, rivers began to stir beneath their icy coverings. At first, the sound was faint, a soft trickling deep below. Then, day by day, the water grew bolder, pushing through cracks and forming narrow streams that glided across the landscape. The gentle flowing of water brought with it a sense of renewal, like a quiet melody drifting across the plains. Animals sensed these changes too. Herds moved into new areas with more confidence, finding fresh grasses where snow had receded. Birds returned earlier in the season, filling the cold air with subtle calls. Even predators adjusted their patterns, following the movement of prey with calm awareness. The entire landscape shifted with a soft, balanced energy. Early humans adjusted their routines alongside these natural changes. They planned journeys with greater flexibility, knowing the land would soon offer new opportunities for gathering, hunting, and resting. The warmer winds made traveling less burdensome, allowing families to cover more ground with less strain. Picture them walking across slowly thawing earth, their steps steady and hopeful. Shelters were adapted to reflect the changing season. Thick layers of hides were eased open to allow fresh air inside. Fires were kept smaller, their warmth no longer needed in the same intensity. These adjustments brought comfort and a sense of gentle relief, like loosening a heavy blanket after a long night of cold. Some days brought sudden melts, where snow cascaded down hillsides in soft, steady sheets. Water pooled in small depressions, forming temporary ponds that reflected the brightening sky. Children delighted in these new pools, tapping their toes into the shallow water and laughing softly at the cool ripples spreading outward. Pause for a moment and imagine those ripples, slow, expanding circles moving peacefully across still water. The land beneath the melting snow revealed textures unseen for many months. Rocks glistened with moisture, soil darkened with fresh thaw, and old paths softened into mud. Early humans traced these paths with thoughtful steps, adjusting their routes to avoid newly forming water channels. It was a time of rediscovery, as the land revealed parts of itself hidden through the long cold season. Animals shed parts of their winter coats as the environment warmed. Tufts of fur caught on branches and rocks, drifting lightly in the breeze. These small signs told early humans that the seasons were truly shifting. The sight of lighter coats and renewed movement across the land brought reassurance and a quiet sense of gratitude. The skies, too, began to change. Clouds thinned, revealing longer stretches of blue. Sunlight lasted just a little bit longer each day, casting golden hues across the thawing ground. Early humans welcomed this extended light, using it to prepare for the coming changes. New migrations, new shelters, and new opportunities for gathering. And as warmth spread through the land, even at its slowest pace, the world seemed to breathe easier. The air carried a gentler tone, the ground softened beneath each step, and the horizon shimmered with quiet possibility. These early stages of warmth unfolded slowly, guiding life toward a new chapter, patiently, calmly, and without urgency. As the warming trend continued, entire valleys began to transform. Snow that once clung stubbornly to the ground thinned layer by layer, revealing the contours of the earth beneath. Hillsides softened, streams widened, and the muted palette of winter gradually made room for deeper, richer shades. Early humans walked through these awakening landscapes with quiet appreciation, recognizing that each small change signaled a new stage of life returning. Let that slow unfolding ease your thoughts into a gentler rhythm. Patches of exposed soil soon became fertile pockets where plants sprouted quickly. The first shoots were fragile, pale, and thin, yet they carried the promise of abundance. Families often paused to examine these emerging plants, noting where new growth appeared and how rapidly it spread. These early signs helped guide decisions about future campsites and gathering routes. The sight of green pushing through melting snow added warmth not only to the land, but to their hearts as well. As more snow melted, rivers grew stronger. Their flow became steady and assured, carrying sediment and nutrients into lower regions. The sound of rushing water replaced the stillness of winter, creating a continuous, calming hum across the valleys. Early humans often camped nearby, comforted by the reliable rhythm of the moving current, a natural reminder that the world around them was shifting toward renewal. Animal migrations adjusted once again as the environment changed. Herds moved into newly exposed meadows, grazing on young plants rich with fresh nutrients. Birds returned in larger numbers, their wings slicing gently through the milder air. Even small creatures, hares, mice, and songbirds, found new energy in the softened landscape. Watching these movements gave early humans a sense of orientation, helping them understand how the land was reshaping itself. Take a moment here to imagine that lively yet gentle scene, everything stirring slowly back to life. Warmer conditions also allowed families to expand their shelters. Thick hides were replaced with lighter coverings, and entrances were widened to let in fresh air. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the structure, illuminating the interior in soft, golden tones. The change was subtle, but it created a soothing comfort that touched everyone inside. Children enjoyed the new season most. They followed streams, discovered patches of soft mud, and watched insects awaken from hiding. These explorations helped them learn about the land in ways that winter never allowed, through touch, sound, and motion. Their quiet laughter carried across the thawing ground, blending into the soft chorus of spring. Larger predators adjusted their patterns as well. They roamed across wider areas, seeking prey that had spread into newly accessible plains. Early humans watched them carefully, noting their paths and behaviors to ensure safety. These observations were thoughtful rather than fearful, shaped by practical awareness and respect for the balance of nature. Meanwhile, certain plants began their seasonal cycles, some budding early, others sprouting new leaves. Families gathered herbs and roots that signaled the start of their brief growing season. These plants weren't taken in excess. They were collected with gratitude, used sparingly, and preserved for future weeks. The land's renewed generosity was treated with respect. As the earth warmed further, long frozen lakes finally thawed. Thin sheets of ice cracked open to reveal deep, clear water beneath. Early humans approached these lakes with caution, testing edges before stepping closer. Once the ice fully melted, the lakes became vital sources of life, providing water, fish, and cool refuge during warmer days. The reflection of the sky on the calm surface created a peaceful sense of openness. Allow this image of a quiet lake, newly free of ice, to fill your mind with calm. With these changes came new opportunities. Families explored areas previously inaccessible, discovering fresh resources and expanded grazing grounds for animals they followed. The landscape offered pathways that had been hidden beneath ice for generations. Each new discovery brought with it a mix of relief and excitement, though expressed in gentle, quiet ways. Storms in this warming era took on a different character. Instead of heavy snowfall, rain fell softly across the land, feeding streams and nourishing plants. The patter of rain on hide coverings created a soothing rhythm at night, helping families drift into restful sleep. These rainstorms signaled the shift toward a more temperate climate. The ground itself began to feel different underfoot. What had once been frozen solid now softened into earth that could be shaped, dug, and explored. Families used this change to create more stable fire pits, stronger supports for shelters, and paths that wouldn't crack under pressure. This newfound flexibility allowed them to imagine the land in new ways. Gradually, warmth transformed the world at a pace everyone could sense but no one could rush. It was a slow transition, measured, patient, and balanced. Early humans welcomed it not with celebration, but with quiet acceptance. They moved with it, worked with it, and rested in it, trusting the natural cycle placed before them. And as the land continued to thaw, a sense of calm possibility spread across the plains. A new chapter was quietly unfolding, one shaped by soft winds, gentle light, and a landscape slowly emerging from centuries of cold. You might feel, in your own thoughts, a similar loosening, a slow warming, a gentle shift, a peaceful easing into rest. As the world shifted gradually toward warmth, Early communities found themselves adjusting to changes unlike anything they had experienced before. The familiar rhythms of the cold, patterns they had relied on for generations, began to soften. Landscapes opened, rivers expanded, and new paths emerged where ice had once blocked their way. These changes came slowly, peacefully, allowing families to respond with patience rather than urgency. Imagine these communities standing at the edge of a thawing plain, feeling both curiosity and calm acceptance. The first response to the warming world came in the form of cautious exploration. Families moved into areas that had been inaccessible for decades, valleys newly free of ice, hillsides dotted with fresh vegetation, and riverbanks no longer frozen solid. Each step into these new landscapes was taken with care. Early humans observed every detail: the scent of damp earth, the feel of softer ground, the gentle sound of running water. These observations helped them understand their new surroundings with quiet confidence. Communities also began to adjust their seasonal routines. Where once they moved according to the harsh demands of winter, they now found more flexibility. Longer days allowed them to travel farther. Warmer nights meant fires could be smaller, conserving their precious resources. These small shifts brought a sense of relief, a gentle easing of the tension that winter had long imposed. As plants flourished, gathering took on a new importance. Families found berries and roots in places that had been unreachable before. The land offered more variety, and communities used this abundance carefully and gratefully. They gathered only what they needed, preserving the rest for the weeks ahead. The sight of fresh plants growing freely across thawing earth brought a deep, quiet joy to their hearts. Pause for a slow breath here, imagining that same quiet joy softening your thoughts. Animals also changed their movements. Some herds traveled into areas with richer food sources. Others spread out, no longer confined to narrow, snow-free pathways. Early humans adapted by adjusting their hunting routes, learning new trails, and studying the behavior of animals in this changing world. Their observations remained gentle and patient, shaped by respect rather than urgency. Communities began to follow rivers more closely than before. As ice melted, rivers carved fresh channels through the landscape, becoming vital guides for travel. The sound of flowing water created a comforting presence during long journeys, marking the direction towards safer ground and new opportunities. Families often camped near these rivers, feeling the soft mist settle on their faces during early mornings. Shelters evolved with the shifting climate. Heavy hide coverings were replaced with lighter ones, allowing air to circulate more freely. Families adjusted their layouts, creating open spaces inside where children could play or adults could work with tools. These small changes reflected a sense of renewal, proof that their shelters, just like the land, could adapt in gentle, practical ways. As the earth warmed, communities found themselves with more time. Without the constant pressure of extreme cold, they could focus on activities beyond immediate survival. Crafting improved, tools became more refined. People experimented with new materials, shaping items with greater care. This extra time also deepened the bonds within the group as they worked together on tasks that required patience. Communication within the community grew richer. With less urgency, families shared more stories, described the new landscapes, and discussed their discoveries with calm excitement. These conversations helped them remain aware of the shifting environment, ensuring that decisions were made thoughtfully and collectively. The sharing of knowledge strengthened their trust in one another. Allow yourself to settle deeper into this slow unfolding of change, just as they did. Changing weather patterns also required attention. Rain fell more frequently, bringing fresh scents and softer ground. Early humans learned how to position shelters to avoid pooling water and how to navigate muddy terrain. They watched clouds more carefully, noting their shapes and movement to anticipate upcoming shifts. Their awareness of the sky deepened, guiding their travels with quiet precision. Hunting strategies expanded as well. With animals moving to new areas, early humans adjusted their routes, learning to track through softer earth and unfamiliar vegetation. Their patience served them well. Each new trail taught them more about the evolving land. They approached these changes not with frustration, but with a calm willingness to adapt. Children experienced this warming world differently than their parents. For them, the thawing land offered new places to explore, open fields, shallow streams, and patches of soft moss beneath their feet. Their discoveries filled the group with a sense of renewal, like watching the world grow through young eyes. Their laughter carried across the warming plains, mixing gently with the calls of returning birds. Even predators shifted their territories. With new prey paths opening, large animals adjusted their routes, often moving to higher ground or deeper valleys. Early humans watched these changes carefully, respecting the boundaries that predators created. This thoughtful distance helped maintain balance, keeping families safe while honoring the natural order of the land. The gradual warming also encouraged long-term thinking. Families began to consider where they might settle for longer periods, not permanently, but for seasons at a time. They chose areas with fertile soil, good water, and natural protection from storms. These decisions were made with calm contemplation, guided by gratitude for the resources the land continued to offer. And so, as the world changed around them, communities responded not with fear, but with steady, thoughtful adaptation. Their quiet resilience allowed them to move forward gently, trusting the unfolding of the natural world and adjusting their lives with patience. As the land continued to warm, communities began to notice how the changing environment affected the availability of resources. Areas that once held snow year-round now revealed soil rich enough for new plants to grow. Families returned to familiar gathering spots only to find them transformed. Streams flowed differently, and new types of vegetation appeared in places that had been barren. These surprises were met with quiet curiosity rather than confusion, as people adjusted their routines with gentle acceptance. The warming climate also brought shifts in animal behavior. Herds ventured into softer ground, seeking fresh grazing areas that appeared as snow retreated. Early humans followed these new paths with careful attention, adjusting their own movement patterns to match the animal's instincts. This flexible approach ensured that the community remained connected to essential food sources, even as the landscape around them changed. Take a moment to imagine the slow, steady movement of these herds across softened ground, creating natural trails through newly exposed earth. Rain became more common, nourishing the land in ways winter snow could not. Instead of the quiet stillness of snowfall, gentle rains fell across wide plains, tapping softly on hide coverings and soaking into the soil. Families listened to the calming rhythm of these showers from within their shelters, appreciating the way rain brought fresh growth and renewed balance. The scent of wet earth, warm, rich, and alive, became a familiar companion during these transitions. With rivers widening and streams multiplying, early humans took advantage of new opportunities for fishing and gathering water plants. These resources added variety to their diets, easing some of the challenges that had been constant through colder years. Families learned to build simple fishing tools for shallow waters, using bone hooks or sharpened wooden prongs to catch fish that now traveled closer to the surface. Communities also began to diversify their shelters in response to the warming climate. They built lighter structures for warmer seasons, using woven branches and thinner hides. These shelters allowed air to circulate, keeping the interiors cool and comfortable. The act of building these new homes became a communal effort, silent, steady, and filled with shared purpose. Children adapted quickly. They explored streams that had once been frozen, watching fish dart through clear water. They collected smooth stones warmed by the sun and noticed new animal tracks in soft mud. Their discoveries helped adults stay aware of how the environment continued to shift, strengthening the community's collective knowledge. As plant life flourished, early humans began to experiment with new uses for vegetation. They wove baskets from flexible branches, created mats from tall grasses, and used fresh leaves for wrapping food. With each new plant discovered, communities found practical ways to incorporate these resources into their daily routines. Their ingenuity grew alongside the land's renewal. The changing world encouraged longer stays in certain areas. Instead of constantly searching for food, families could remain near fertile grounds for extended periods. These longer stays allowed them to strengthen their shelters, craft better tools, and deepen their bonds with neighboring groups. The sense of stability brought comfort, even though the world around them remained dynamic. Pause here and imagine the comforting feeling of a temporary home becoming a familiar refuge, surrounded by soft greenery and flowing water. Predators adapted as well, shifting their hunting grounds toward regions where prey had moved. Early humans watched their patterns with respectful caution, using these observations to decide when to travel, when to rest, and when to relocate. This awareness helped maintain a peaceful balance between humans and large predators, allowing both to exist without unnecessary conflict. The warming land also created new challenges. Meltwater sometimes flooded pathways or made certain regions too muddy to cross safely. Storms brought heavy rains that required stronger shelter support. In these moments, early humans relied on their adaptability and cooperation. They worked together to reroute paths, reinforce structures, and find safe passage through newly formed obstacles. Despite these challenges, the overall feeling during this era was one of quiet opportunity. Families sensed that the world was offering new possibilities, even if those possibilities came slowly. They observed the land with gratitude, recognizing that every shift, every new plant, every calmer wind, every widened river, was part of a larger balance crafted for their sustenance. As the warming continued, communities found themselves forming deeper connections with the landscapes they traveled through. They began to remember specific valleys not just as shelter, but as places where new plants had grown. They marked certain rivers as reliable guides. Over time, these memories wove into the stories told each night, shaping how future generations understood the land. And as these early humans responded thoughtfully to a changing world, their resilience deepened. They embraced the slow shift toward warmth, leaning into each new season with calm, steady confidence. Much like the land around them, they, too, softened, living in harmony with the world's gradual unfolding, ready for what the next chapter would bring. As the Ice Age gradually released its hold on the world, a new landscape slowly began to emerge, one shaped by centuries of patience, melting ice, and quiet transformation. The vast white expanses that once dominated the horizon gave way to greens, browns, and soft blues. What had been a world defined by cold now unfolded into a gentler environment, inviting life to return in ways it had not for countless generations. Imagine standing at the edge of this changing land, watching the earth awaken like a slow, peaceful breath. The once heavy ice sheets retreated, revealing valleys that had been hidden for thousands of years. These valleys stretched wide and open, lined with rocks polished by ancient glacier. Rivers flowed freely through them, carving new paths where the ice had pressed for so long. Early humans stepped into these spaces with quiet awe, sensing the significance of this new chapter, calm, hopeful, and full of possibility. Where glacier once pressed down with immense weight, the land began to rise subtly. This natural rebounding happened imperceptibly, felt more through small changes in the shape of the land than in any dramatic motion. Hills formed where there had been none. Lakes widened. The world reorganized itself gently, piece by piece, guided by the slow release of cold. Picture these changes taking place over generations, like soft ripples expanding outward. Plants were among the first to embrace the newly revealed earth. Grasses spread across the plains, forming a green carpet that softened the ground beneath every step. Shrubs and young trees took root along riverbanks, their leaves rustling in the mild, changing winds. These early plants stabilized the soil, preventing erosion and inviting animals to explore the reborn spaces. The sight of these new colors brought quiet comfort to families who had known mostly white and gray. Take a moment to imagine that gentle shift, the soft green of new grass after years of snow, the earthy scent rising from thawed soil. Animals ventured into the changing landscape with natural curiosity. Herds grazed along the edges of fresh meadows, predators adjusted their territories, and smaller creatures scurried into newly formed underbrush. The entire environment hummed with a balanced, rhythmic sense of renewal. Early humans watched this unfold with thoughtful patience, learning each new pattern as it appeared. Rivers, freed from their icy ceilings, carved deeper channels. Their waters sparkled beneath warmer sunlight, reflecting shades of blue and gold. These rivers became lifelines, sources of water, food, and direction. Families often followed them, letting the flow guide their migration into unfamiliar territory. The gentle sound of running water became a constant companion, steady and reassuring. Lakes expanded where melted ice accumulated. Some were shallow and temporary, disappearing after a season, while others formed long-lasting bodies of water that would endure for generations. These lakes attracted birds, fish, and grazing animals, creating pockets of abundant life. Early humans settled near them for short periods, using the clear water for drinking and preparing food, grateful for the provisions made accessible to them. Nearby, forests started to take hold. At first, only hardy species survived, small trees with flexible trunks and strong roots. Over time, taller trees joined them, forming young forests with shifting patches of light and shade. These forests offered wood for tools, shelter from storms, and habitats for animals the communities depended upon. The sound of leaves brushing gently in the wind became a new softness in the air. With more vegetation came more reliable food. Families gathered fresh plants, berries, and herbs. They caught fish more easily, observed new hunting pathways, and found new resting spots for their shelters. The abundance did not lead them to excess. Instead, it deepened their sense of gratitude for the natural sequences unfolding around them. Allow your breathing to settle as you imagine these early people moving slowly through a landscape full of new scents, new colors, and new sounds. The warming climate also led to changes in weather patterns. Rainfall increased during certain seasons, providing nourishment to the spreading vegetation. Thunderstorms rumbled softly across open plains, bringing moisture that enhanced plant growth. Early humans learned to read these new patterns, adjusting their movements and routines with careful awareness. As days grew warmer, early humans found comfort in lighter clothing. Thick hides were exchanged for thinner layers, giving them greater freedom of movement. Their shelters also grew simpler during warmer months, less fortified, more open to fresh air and sunlight. These changes made daily life easier, shifting the community's focus from endurance to exploration. The land revealed more than just vegetation. Glacial retreat uncovered ancient rocks, fossils, and ridges that told stories of the Earth's deep history. Early humans didn't interpret these as mystical signs. Instead, they saw them as natural parts of the land, shaped by time and the will of the one who governs creation. These discoveries deepened their understanding of the world they walked through. On warmer evenings, the skies took on richer colors. Sunsets stretched across the horizon in soft pinks and golds, reflected by lakes and rivers that grew clearer each week. Families sat together during these evenings, watching the sky and listening to the calm wind. The peacefulness of these moments soothed their minds after long days of travel or work. And as life continued to settle into this new landscape, communities adapted naturally, one quiet step, one gentle observation at a time. They did not rush the process. They did not force change. Instead, they moved with the land's new rhythm, embracing the warmth and growing abundance with calm gratitude. As the warming world continued to reshape itself, early humans discovered new pathways carved by streams and rivers that had never existed before. These water channels wound through fresh soil, curving around hills and weaving between young forests. Families walked beside them, enjoying the gentle sound of flowing water that echoed softly between the trees. These paths made travel easier, guiding communities through terrain that was once unrecognizable beneath layers of ice. The arrival of milder weather also brought new types of wildlife. Birds with bright feathers visited the newly formed lakes, their calls adding gentle notes to the quiet mornings. Insects buzzed softly among flowering plants, becoming small but essential parts of the reborn ecosystem. Early humans observed these creatures with curiosity, appreciating how every living being played a role in balancing the land around them. As meadows expanded, they became resting grounds for herds seeking fresh grazing. Families followed cautiously, noting the areas where animals gathered most often. These meadows offered both food sources and safe places to sleep, their soft grasses providing comfort after long journeys. Imagine lying on such a meadow, feeling the earth warm beneath you, the air mild and steady. Take a slow breath here, letting that feeling of gentle warmth ease your thoughts. Communities also discovered new varieties of stone exposed by the receding ice. These stones varied in color, weight, and texture, providing fresh opportunities for crafting tools. Darker stones with natural sharpness became prized for blades, while smoother stones served as grinding surfaces. People experimented quietly, shaping these materials into tools that reflected the land's evolving gifts. The forests thickened with each passing season. As tree roots spread deeper into the soil, they stabilized the land, preventing erosion left behind by melting ice. These forests offered shade during warmer days and protection from the wind when storms returned. The rustle of leaves became a comforting, continuous backdrop, steady and soothing, like the rhythm of calm breath. Families began building semi-permanent campsites near these forests and meadows, allowing them to stay in one place longer than before. These camps became centers of cooperation, places where tools were crafted, food was shared, and children played freely. The stability of staying in one area for many days at a time brought a deeper sense of comfort and belonging. Even with these changes, early humans maintained their close relationship with the land. They watched the sky for signs of rain, examined the soil for clues of growth, and listened to the distant calls of animals to understand where they might travel next. Their awareness grew richer with each season, shaped by gratitude and the deepening knowledge of their surroundings. As temperatures continued to warm, the landscape transformed into a patchwork of forests, plains, lakes, and river valleys. These environments supported different types of life, creating diversity that hadn't existed for thousands of years. Early humans adapted naturally, learning the subtle differences between each region and using the land's resources responsibly. Allow your breathing to slow here, mirroring the slow pace of the land's transformation. The nights also changed. Instead of icy winds, cool breezes carried the scent of plants and fresh water. Families slept under clearer skies, watching stars shine above them without the haze of winter storms. These peaceful nights became cherished moments, times of quiet reflection, soft conversations, and deep rest. As the land grew more fertile, early humans began to revisit areas that had once been too cold to sustain life. They reclaimed familiar paths, discovered old landmarks now free of ice, and built new memories on ground that had been hidden for generations. The earth felt renewed, open, and full of gentle promise. Children grew up knowing a different world than their parents. They learned to track animals across softer soil, to gather plants in newly flourishing meadows, and to cross rivers no longer sealed by ice. Their childhoods were shaped by the warmth of the changing land, giving them skills suited for a gentle environment. And with each passing year, the world became more recognizable, closer to the landscapes we know today. Forests matured, rivers deepened, and plains spread wide beneath soft skies. Life moved peacefully within this transformed world, guided by the same quiet rhythms that had shaped the generations before. As the Ice Age gradually faded into memory, early humans carried the lessons of their ancestors forward: patience, observation, gratitude, and calm resilience. They walked into this new landscape with steady footsteps and hopeful hearts, embracing the world as it unfolded gently before them. And as we reach the end of this journey, take a slow breath and allow a sense of calm to settle around you. Thank you for listening to this quiet story of change, resilience, and renewal. May your rest be peaceful, your mind at ease, and your night filled with gentle comfort.